Hello, I'm Pastor Chad Welch, and I'm making a series of videos addressing the subject of annihilationism. These videos are designed to provide ministry leaders and pastors with information to have helpful conversations with those that are getting drawn into annihilationism. Uh, Annihilationism is a growing movement within evangelicalism today, and I think one of the reasons it is growing so well is because those promoting annihilationism are very putting out a lot of material, and in their material they are making very good arguments. And I think too few of us as pastors and ministry leaders are carefully taking the time to address the arguments and to address them well. And so in these videos, I'd like to just provide some information to pastors, ministry leaders, to be able to have some helpful conversations and address the subject of annihilationism very thoughtfully and thoroughly. This particular video is going to be on the subject of Matthew 10:28 and the word apollomy, which is a major verse and passage in the annihilationist movement. And it's one that you need to be familiar with if you're going to have helpful conversations with those that are getting drawn into annihilationism. The subject of this video is going to be Matthew 10:28, which says this in the New King James, "And do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." This particular verse is at the center of much of the discussion in annihilationism, and the annihilationist will claim that the only possible understanding of the Greek for Matthew 10:28 is that the soul is killed or slain by God in hell. And of course, if the only possible interpretation is to kill or slay the soul, that must mean annihilation. And so the purpose of this video is just simply to point out the facts that will show that this verse does not have to mean slay or killing of the soul. As we consider having this conversation with the annihilationist and having good information to provide those that are getting drawn into it, there are two important considerations in Matthew 10:28. First of all, does the word translated destroy have to mean slay or kill? Or can it mean ruin a life in another way? The other consideration is, does the word translated life have to mean physical life or conscious existence? Or are there other usages of the word life in this passage that could be used to understand what is being said here? And so those are the two considerations. What does destroy mean, and what does life mean? We are considering Matthew 10:28 and whether or not to destroy body and soul in hell must mean that the soul is killed. At the center of this discussion is the word apollomy, which is translated destroy. And we are asking ourselves the question, does the Greek apollomy, the word translated destroy, have to mean kill or slay? And as we answer this question, our first consideration is the annihilationist leader's own words. Chris Date is one of the leaders of the movement, and you have one of his quotes on the screen here with the video that contains this quote and the timestamp there and all of it referenced well. But notice that as he makes his arguments that the word apollomy must mean slay or kill, he has to narrow his parameters down to the synoptic gospels. He has to say that, well, in the synoptic gospels, it always means this, which means that Chris Date knows that this Greek word, when used in this grammatical context, can mean something other than slay or kill outside of the synoptic gospels. He must know that outside the synoptic gospels, there are plenty of times that the word is used actively, transitively, one personal object against another personal object, or one person against another person, and it doesn't mean slay or kill. So read through that definition, see how he carefully has to define the usage of that word to make it mean what he says it has to mean. And when he has to restrict it that far in order to make it mean slay or kill, you know that he knows that this word does not have to mean slay or kill. As we continue to answer the question, does the Greek word apolumi or destroy have to mean kill or slay? Our next thought here is that the Greek word apolumi has many usages other than kill or complete destruction. And most annihilationists know this. I'm not presenting something here on this particular slide that most annihilationists don't know. However, they are going to downplay it as much as possible. It will still be good for us in our helpful conversations with others to point this out and remind them of this fact. Here are some of Thayer's definitions of the word apolumi. Number one is to put out of the way entirely, to abolish or to ruin. And so it's to get something out of the way. It is to ruin something, and there's many ways to ruin something besides complete destruction. To render something useless, and so not to destroy it, but to make it useless. You can destroy an arm by breaking it, and it is not annihilated, but it is useless. Number three is to kill, but notice that's number three in the list. The final one is to perish, to be lost, to ruined or destroyed. The idea of lost is something that is not destroyed, but it is useless to you. You've suffered the loss of it. You can't use it anymore. If you have lost your home, it doesn't mean the home is destroyed. It maybe means that you couldn't afford it anymore and somebody else is using it, somebody else is living in it. And so to lose something is not to destroy it. And in Scripture, most often when we talk about something that is lost, it is the word apolumi that is being used. Now, it's not the exact grammatical context of Matthew 10:28, but the word apolumi has many, many usages. In fact, in Matthew 10:28 or Matthew 10 alone, it is used three different ways. In Matthew 10:6, it is used of the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, certainly these lost sheep of the house of Israel are not destroyed. They are very much alive. They are walking around, living, breathing. They possess life. They are lost in the sense that they are spiritually ruined. And so Matthew 10:28 talks about destroying body and soul, whatever that means. It is a different use than Matthew 10:6. And then in Matthew 10:39, it talks about losing one's own life. And we'll talk about that verse in a little bit, but Matthew 10:39, losing one's own life there is not talking about um, being killed. It's not talking about committing suicide. It's talking about sacrificing a quality of life. And so even in Matthew 10 alone, the word apolumi is used in several ways, and two of them do not mean slay or kill. We're answering the question, does the Greek word in Matthew 10:28 translated as destroy have to mean slay or kill? And we answer the question again with a no, because apolumi is used in this form, actively, transitively, in at least two passages, which clearly do not mean kill. And so again, the arguments of the annihilationist are that this word has to mean slay or kill. And given the specific grammatical situation of the word there, that it is in the active voice and that it is used transitively, one personal object against another personal object, or one person acting against another person, it has to, in this context, mean kill. However, there are two passages listed on this slide where that is not the case. Romans chapter 14, verse 15, and John chapter 18, verse 9. In Romans chapter 14, verse 15, we are told not to destroy, not to apolumi our brother because of meat, because of our enjoyment of a certain food. But in that passage, it's not saying that we shouldn't kill our brother. And it is saying that we should not ruin them spiritually through our desire to eat meat. And so in that passage, the verb apolumi is used actively, transitively, one person against another person, and it does not mean to kill. In John chapter 18, verse 9, Jesus says he didn't kill any of his disciples. No, no. He says he didn't destroy any of them. Jesus is not saying there that, oh, I didn't kill any of my disciples. He says, I didn't lose any of them, but it is the apollumi, and it is used actively, transitively. And the idea there is not obviously a killing or a slaying. The idea there is a spiritual loss of these disciples. And so there you have two times apollumi is used in Scripture in the grammatical way that it is used in Matthew 10:28, and it clearly does not mean kill the other person. Again, and I would say that Chris Date and other leaders within this movement know and understand that there are plenty of times that the word apollumi is used in this way, and it does not mean slay or kill. As we continue to answer this question concerning the word apollumi and what it has to mean in Matthew 10:28, our next answer to the question is no, that apollumi does not have to mean slay or kill. Apollumi can be a reference to ruining the quality of life instead of ending of life. The word suke, and we'll talk about this again later, does not have to mean the end of the life. Matthew 10:39 talks about destroying one's own life. And that word destroy one's own life is the word apollumi. And in that particular verse, when it talks about destroying one's own life, it is not talking about killing oneself, and it's not talking necessarily about martyrdom. Now, martyrdom may be included in what it means to destroy one's own life, but it is not the sum total. One can destroy one's own life without being martyred. The passage talks about such things as relationships and allowing relationships to be ruined out of dedication to Christ. It talks about daily taking up one's cross and following Christ. And so to apollumi one's life there for the sake of Christ is to allow one's life to be ruined in this world. It is to take and accept the sacrifices that are necessary to live the Christian life. And so in Matthew 10:39, one apollumes one's own life by ruining the quality of life in this world and giving up the things of this life. And so there, right here in Matthew 10 itself, we have a use of apollumi, which does not mean to slay or kill. If you turn over to Luke 26 through 34, which is a similar passage to Matthew 10:39, in that particular passage, when one destroys one's own life, they actually leave it behind. They run from it. It has the idea there of their home and their house and their things in their house, and they leave it and they run away from it. And so one who destroys one's own life is not one who dies, but one who just leaves behind the life that they were living in a certain place, the life that they were living, and they leave their home and their stuff and their things behind and they run. And just to make the point very clear as to what it means to destroy one's own life, in Matthew 17, he uses the example of Lot's wife. Lot's wife tried to save her life in Sodom. And it uses the exact same phrase, save one's life, save one's suke. And in that particular situation, Lot's wife is not trying to save her physical life from death. She's not trying to stop from being killed. What she wants to salvage is her life in Sodom. And so in that particular passage, destroying one's own life is not killing oneself or accepting martyrdom. In these particular passages, to destroy one's own life is to allow their life to be ruined. So in Matthew 10:39, to apollumi one's own life is to sacrifice the things of life or to sacrifice the quality of life. In Luke 17:26 through 34, to suke one's own life means to leave behind a life that a person is living. All right, our next thought here as we continue to understand the word destroy or apollumi in Matthew 10:28 is this. There is reason to believe that apolluming a soul in hell is speaking of torment. There is reason to believe it is something different. You say, well, the context of Matthew 10:28 is not the same as one man on this earthly realm killing another man. In fact, that's the whole point of Matthew 10:28. Matthew 10:28 says that what one man does to another man in this earthly realm is different than what God does to body and soul later on. And so one of the main arguments of those that say apollumi has to be slay or kill is to put it in the context of what one man does to another man. Now, we've already proven that apollumi, when used of one man, destroying another man does not have to mean slay or kill. But even if it did consistently mean slay or kill in this earthly realm, one person attacking and killing another man in this earthly realm is not the context to understand apollumi, is not the context to understand what God does to a person in the afterlife, if you will. And so, again, the logic kind of falls apart if you're trying to say that in this context, apollumi always has to mean slay or kill. And so the question becomes, do we have a context in which it is not one man acting against another man in the physical realm, but God acting against a spiritual being in another realm, in which to help us understand what apollumi might mean in Matthew 10:28? And we do. Um, Several places in the New Testament and the Gospels, we have Christ confronting demons, Christ confronting spiritual beings. And in several of those places, the word apollumi is used. Mark 1:24, Luke 4:34. And the demons are worried about Christ destroying them, apolluming them. Now we have some other places where Christ confronts the demons, and the demons are worried about Christ tormenting them. Matthew 10:29, Mark 5:7, Luke 8:28. And so in some passages, the demons ask, are you going to destroy us, apollumi us, ruin us? And in another passage, they say, are you going to torment us? Now, given what we have already seen of this word apollumi and the possible different meanings and usages of the word apollumi, and what we see as far as the demons and what the demons are asking Christ and saying to Christ, there seems to be good reason to think that when the demons ask, are you going to destroy us? Are you going to apollumi us? They are talking about torment. They're talking about being punished. They're talking about being ruined in hell and not destroyed. And so, again, that provides us some context in which to understand perhaps what Christ is saying in Matthew 10:28. We turn ourselves quickly to the next question concerning Matthew 10:28, and that is this: does the word translated life have to mean existence? One of the arguments of the annihilationist is that this word, suke, can only possibly mean life or existence. And so to destroy someone's life has to mean to kill them. But the fact is that the word translated as life has various usages, and context determines the right interpretation of these various usages. And those usages of the word life include quality of life. So it doesn't just have to mean life as far as existence, life as far as conscious existence. There are several places where the word suke indicates something other than conscious existence. And in fact, again, Matthew 10:39, we've already looked at it in this video in our definition of apolemy, but now Matthew 10:39 as far as what the word life has to mean. In Matthew 10:39, losing one's life is accepting the daily sacrifices of this life to live for God. And so the person isn't dying, they're not ceasing conscious existence, they are sacrificing quality of life in order to live for God. And so ruining one's suke in that passage means to destroy one's quality of life. And then we turn to Luke 17:26 through 34. And in that particular passage, losing one's life is giving up one's participation in a certain location with the people and the things associated with that place. And so it is used of Lot's wife giving up her life in Sodom, walking away from her life in Sodom, or being unwilling to walk away from her life in Sodom. And it's used of people that are on the housetop and they have to run to save their physical life by leaving behind their life, by leaving behind the things of life, their homes and their jobs and everything that has to do with that circumstance. And so in that particular situation, life is a certain circumstance, and it is a circumstance of life that is left behind. And so in both of these passages, the word life is used of something other than simply physical existence or conscious existence. And so simply, you cannot simply say that life has to mean existence in those passages of Scripture. And thus, we see that the interpretation of the annihilationist for Matthew 10:28 is falling apart when they say that it has to mean kill the soul. We have in this video carefully considered the annihilationist claim that Matthew 10:28 has to mean kill the soul in hell. We've considered two things. Does the word translated destroy have to mean slay or kill? And I think we've clearly laid out that it does not have to mean slay or kill in that passage, in that grammatical context. We also considered, does the word translated life have to mean physical life or conscious existence? Again, Matthew 10:39, Matthew 10, the chapter itself proves that the word life has various meanings and that it can mean ruining the quality of existence and not ruining existence altogether. And so I think we have more than shown that Matthew 10:28 does not have to mean that the soul is destroyed or annihilated. If you like this video, please hit like so that I can know to make more of this content. Thank you.